Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The linguistic simulation is a cocoon for a conscious world. Questions may arise. What is meant by the linguistic simulation? How can language be a cocoon? And what is the conscious world? In the subtitle and in the description, I've called it non-ideological collective re-emergence, something like that. So in this episode, most of the ideas are from my inner realm, so it's easier to speak about. The linguistic simulation was pretty much, I notice everybody is programmed in language. Whatever, you can be someone and say you are the most liberated being, but language is part of the program here. Because we are creatures that exist to our own self as language, it makes it easy to see other objects and also perceive them as language. Our morality is strange in 2020 because it is based on a binary analysis and a snapshot or like a painting on a wall judgment. Unlike various schools of thought, have developed a sort of evolutionary model for myself. And the conscious world is the fourth phase of what I feel, evolutionary speaking, is happening on this planet to all human beings. We are right now between the third and fourth phase of evolution. But before this sentence can really be vivid, I need to explain to you what I mean by these four phases of evolution. I termed them very simply. It was a pattern I recognized. First, there is an unconscious world. There's just, let's say, stuff moving around. Then there came an unconscious self. What does that mean? That means there was just stuff moving around. Suddenly, a creature emerged. For me, the significance of the objective evolution isn't adaptation. For me, it's the fact that the design is there. You don't know how many times when I was young, I would look at my hands, I would see the structure of my fingers, and I would look at a leaf. And if you look at a leaf, you kind of see that um, five-line design. So the significance of the objective evolution is the emergence of limbs. It's the emergence of a body. It's not the awareness that we're separate from the world. That hasn't come yet. You know, in the second phase, the unconscious self, it's simply just design, a model. You can say it's creaturehood without the creature being aware it's a creature. Then something unique happens, something they don't teach in schools, nobody's talking about it, and it shocked me. The subjective evolution happens. So first phase, unconscious world movement, nothing here to see, folks. Then then happened the unconscious self. There was something to see. For the first time, creaturehood emerged on the surface of what was all one massive movement. So our bodies allow us to be a movement that identifies separate to its environment. Now, what happens? Just a second, folks. Excuse me. So back to the idea, guys. Pretty much we have the first phase of evolution. I'll begin again. The unconscious world, suddenly a body emerged. The objective evolution, this is what I see significant about the objective evolution. The design of the object, the separate object emerged. Now, after the objective evolution, there was the subjective evolution. The subjective evolution, nobody is talking about and is a mystery. It's not a mystery, at least the way I've approached it, but for now, it's something that's not discussed because we are treating the mind as if it's not in the world. That means for me, secular society, or not just secular society, just the materialistic perspective is the biggest permission slip for the immaterial. It's like the nature of this life is that nature on some level, because it has the instructions of its design, doesn't need to be told what to do. Not always, I'm just saying, I'm just speaking about the emergence of human beings, the emergence of an evolutionary perspective. That means we evolved to a point where we could notice evolution. So the third phase was the subjective evolution. That's where we are now. That's when in the objective evolution we noticed ourselves as an object. But in the subjective evolution, we noticed ourselves as a subject. Now we have been living through language for such a long period that I feel we, born in 2020, are at a very rare end. It's as if we are noticing the civilization maturing beyond its own concepts, and that's a remarkable thing to see. A species waking up beyond its specifications. So this was the thing. The subjective evolution was where man was left. So first, you can say there was we can see a perspective of idol worship. Man was focused about the objective movement, the objective exploration. Then man became considerate of the subjective movement, the subjective exploration. How are subjects being there when objects are? And now, this is the unique point where we're alive now. From the third phrase, from the subjective evolution, we are going to the conscious world. So it was unconscious world, unconscious self, conscious world. This is a model that when I wrote it, it was so liberating. It was one of the best things I had designed, I feel. Now, what does it mean, the conscious world? That's the essence of this talk. This talk today is, what is that conscious world, and how is the way we are extracting meaning from the moment a sort of transformative influence? There are some people who look at life and they're like, yeah, it's just objects. Why should I worry about it? It's just known objects. And then some people look at it and they just see unknown subjects. For example, all those who see mysteries, to the void, to the infinite, to the singular, to the dualistic. These are in some sense the myths of man's mind, which is another way of saying the person is experiencing life more through space. The more you are like space, the more there is freedom. The more you are a certain specific content in the space, your freedom becomes conditional. So you can say your karma is based on how you are holding the steering wheel. There are some people who are new to the vehicle and they have to hold the steering wheel with both hands and they have to check everything very robotically. But there are some people who have driven so far that their attention is no longer on how they should be inside the car. Their attention is on how everything outside of the car. I don't know how. I mean, there's many people in this world who have driven a lot, but after some point, the vehicle becomes the edge of your body of attention. For me, if I sit somewhere, the edge of the room, the stillness in the room becomes a parameter of, it just becomes my, imagine there's a sphere around me. Anything I see to the edge of that sphere is known. Anything that's beyond, let's say a person is inside a sphere, anything outside of the sphere is the unknown. So language's position is actually strange. Language is like an object in another dimension. The mind, at times, to me, feels like another way that a body exists for attention. But moments of mystery, that is when the divine meets you. So there's moments in life where the known meets you throughout the day. What you are familiar with arises to you, or you meet it throughout the day. And there are moments where you go into unfamiliar mode, a sort of unfamiliarity. You can consider this life to be meaningless objects. You can consider this life to be meaningful subjects. But whatever you do or consider or conclude or impose, the event is the event. That means the history books, it's as if, it's like we write events, but it's as if history doesn't really care for people. People care for history. History is like that lover that you loved, but history didn't love you back. I'm being poetic in the sense that many individual lives go unseen, and it is the events that are recorded. So we can say that right now, if a person thinks important and somebody was like, all right, what's more important than people, it would be an event. An event can be more important than a person. You see, you can say the mob mentality has a reverse. We have the mob mentality. The mob mentality tells us that if there is a possibility for inefficient expression, simultaneously there's a possibility for efficient expression. Any mistake I have made, the moment I have made it, I saw I could have not made it. That's the fascinating thing. And this linguistic simulation, it's important to acknowledge it because so many people go towards philosophy, they feel it deviates from reality and they forget it, not realizing that philosophy is not here to give you answers. Philosophy is here to open the horizons for you. If you want to fly into it, that's your choice. You know? That means it's just like, it's like this notion from monotheistic mindset where you're like, it's as if God created man, then God's like, at some point, maybe I should tell him I'm here in the room watching them, you know. So it was a sort of emergence of consideration. I really feel right now what people are calling their beliefs, their systems of belief or disbelief, I feel this is just the mind's clothing. Language is how the mind dresses itself up. When the mind is afraid, hope is the language. You know? When the mind feels super victorious and powerful, the fear of the fall is the language. You see, there is a language of events going on because we're in attention. We're just the presence of an attention. That means there was, in my youth, I thought I could be judged. Then I realized everybody's judging me from their own world. And then I started laughing. Because the world is serious if you see no other way. That's the thing about the linguistic simulation. It's like something is thrown on the person. You know what it is? It's like, imagine the language being like endless, like a jacket company that is selling endlessly next level jackets or something. Okay, now imagine this jacket company is running around and throwing jackets on people's heads in the street. Free jackets, everyone, throwing jackets all over people's heads. The jacket is free. The person didn't do anything. It just came to them. But here's the element of free will, where you can take that jacket off. And the DNA for me is the jacket for a field. We right now have no other way, no other choice to acknowledge the individualism that is being the gears and cogs of civilization. That means on one level, we got to be uh, uh, non-dual to understand the value of the whole system, and on another level, you got to be individual to go get something to eat so you don't die. So it's like the non-duality is inner. In the outer realms, in front of your eyes, it's okay to be an individual. It's an honor, to be honest. It's your birthright. That means if I see a young kid, very young kid, and the young kid's like, I'm God. Like, imagine like you see a 10-year-old kid like, I'm God. I'll be like, no, that's too soon. You've become God too soon. Because the thing about life is, imagine, this is the issue. This is the biggest question I have from a theological standpoint. Why, if you create something perfect, you don't have to worry about it? If you create something perfect, you don't worry about it. You know what I mean? That means it's like when you lock your house in the morning and go to work, it's like you don't worry about it. You trust the design. And for me, the fact that man needs to worship God, that is not the same as man loving God. Love is an unconditional thing. Worship is conditional. Oh yeah, I need to see that face. Yeah, now I can worship a face. Now I could worship a ideological face. We have worship stories for too long. It's time to move beyond them. The theological confusion for me is if it's like, think of it this way. Imagine You take your child to a soccer pitch. The child is playing soccer, and there's a coach, or there's, let's say, the parent is the coach. Let's say the parent is a coach of a soccer team, and it's like the child in the middle of the soccer game. Should the child listen to the parent, or the coach, or should the child have full attention on the soccer pitch? The moment I have this view, the moment the players go on the field, they should not see the stadium. They should not see the coach. They should just play the game. When you're in the gladiators arena, there's no more planning left. When you're alive, when you're in your conscious waking state, yeah, it's like the event has started. You've been pushed into the gladiator arena and there's tigers jumping at you. But at the same time, you've got an honor that pushes back the tigers, a Maximus Gladiator style kind of. So, from the evolutionary phase of the conscious self to the conscious world, I saw the notion, the reason I'm using the metaphor of a cocoon, is because the caterpillar is one of those, excuse me, what the fuck, WTF creatures in nature. The caterpillar for me is an alien. I mean, a lot of insects, you look at them up close, you're like, yeah, this alien is. You're like, I see where movies got their inspiration for alienhood from. This is something a lot of people don't know, but in the movie Predator, the voice actor, which I forget his name, but he's a remarkable person. The voice actor was taken. They showed him like a scene from like the movie of Predator, the creature, and they asked this voice actor, "Can you make a voice for this character?" The voice actor saw the picture of like the Predator in the movie Predator, and the voice actor just imagined in his childhood there was like some sort of crab that had died, and it was like bubbling in the sun on the beach. And so this voice actor used that childhood memory, and the same voice actor for Predator, by the way, is the same voice actor for Optimus Prime. And the guy saw, for example, a sort of like decaying crab, and the sound of that decaying crab became in his inner realms possible to for him to somehow mold it to the Predator, the character, you know. Sorry, guys, there was a unavoidable phone call I had to handle. But anyways, words find me now, for this is the only hour. From language, or how the caterpillar transforms. The caterpillar is not like a bird in its design, as if it's like a bird that is born with the potential to fly and just grows into the ability of flying. The caterpillar is a creature designed to experience, in some sense, a two-dimensional plane of mobility. But once the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and as the cells, through metamorphosis, as the cells of the caterpillar die, and as the last cell dies, the first cell of the butterfly emerges. As the cells of the butterfly emerge, it was as if one realm, one lifetime, began and went back to its end. It was as if the caterpillar was a lifetime. But the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and technically it's like the same thing as these yogis that went into caves. It was a sort of dying. Here's the best way. This is a saying that in Sufism, Gnosticism, and even Vedic thought, it's there, where they say, Saint Francis Assisi said, "It is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life." In Sufism, they say you must die before you die. What that means is you must see beyond the linguistic simulation of how life is so locked down in image. And in Vedic thought, the best way recently I have found a gentleman named Srinasargadatta Maharaj speak about it was so incredible, where he says the same thing of dying before you die, or it is in dying to self that we were born to eternal life. In the yogic mind, it is this. You start off in this world as this sentence: I am myself. As the I am myself goes, the I am all comes. As the I am all goes, the I am comes. In the I am, all is. All nature is. It is being so pure before the word pure existed. It's experience that had never walked into suffering. But even the I am goes. And all that remains is being. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says diversity without separateness is the ultimate, with a capital U, that the mind can touch. That means this mind, me being this guy talking about advanced civilizations and advanced communicators, its limit is to see uniqueness and unity. That is as far as the physical expression and the most advanced position of individuality goes. Your individual life, one edge is nothing, the singular void is an exit, and the other exit, you can say, is diversity without separateness, the infinite void. The singular, either through the singular you enter the void, because we're starting in a dualistic position, or you, from the infinite, you enter the void. I would say it is quicker. Back in the day, they had no choice. It was more of a better strategy as a person who acknowledged the man in the mirror multidimensionally. Here's the thing. When it wasn't easy, what do people do? What do people do? For me, so many religions speak about love. So many even mystical practices, they preach a sort of unification and non-duality with the beloved. But for me, anybody who's listening, please respond. Is it love to want to escape? Is it love to want to get out? That means this is the strange thing. How can you love the world if you want to get out of it? That in religious thought and monotheistic traditions, afterlife is the focus. In mystical traditions, beyond life is the focus. In, you can say, in the more scientific lens, it's just material life that's the focus. Do you see, we are actors on a stage taking our lines at a seriousness that we don't even realize we're actors. And actors in what sense? Even if you're a materialist or even if you're an immaterialist, we are actors in both angles. It's just about the intelligence. That means from a materialistic perspective, whoever you are is just a bunch of atoms moving around. You know? It's just, it's just stuff. But from an immaterialistic perspective, you are being moved, but there's no shape, there's no matter, there's no reference, there's no language. The invisible doesn't have a visible language. In front of our eyes, yes, we can call that a cup. We can call many things. It's like the alphabet of the inner realms first comes from the outer realms. You need the outer realms to even have an inner realm. The concept of it becomes meaningless. This is why when you really go within, there is no inner and outer. To the within, there is no inner, no outer. It is. The whole point is that human beings have been these creatures that have just popped around and like here's the thing. This is what I feel life is. Someone just running in the battlefield. That's life. You know? An unknown landscape where the known is just marching through. Effort after effort. Because what are our days like on this planet? For me, it's like, regardless of how poetically I see the realm, there is a binary truth here. And the binary truth is kind of like on, off, effort, no effort, effort, no effort. It doesn't matter what kind of moment you are, where you are. If there is effort, you are choosing to honor the outer realms in a good way. In a way where you see that we shouldn't be scared of matter. We want advanced communicators. That means materialistic perspectives are accessible and immaterialistic perspectives. You see, it's as if everything, it's just about how you've classified it. It's like the point of consciousness, the point of the human being being aware of itself, because a lot of things in nature are just happening on their own. We're like, why did the human being, like the only reason we suffer is because we're aware of ourselves. If we weren't aware of ourselves, we won't suffer. So it took us 4 billion years to be able to be conscious of suffering. It's an evolutionary advancement. It's not misery. You're suffering. It's not a misery. That person who is in pain, just remember that it was a long time for us to be able to even look at the world this way. And life, of course, it is like weather. That means it's like when it rains, you can shout at the sky, but it still rains. That's really the wisdom of the materialistic perspective. That whatever you think, the world has its mind is manifestation is the mind of the moment. That means it's like you can see us being in reality and then having the word imagination, or you can think of yourself as an abstract being and reality is just imagination you didn't have to think about. It was just given. Like a math exam, existence was already given with a shape. What really fascinated me to actually wander beyond language was just this simple feeling that is there more going on about the picture, about my moment that I'm not seeing? You see, there, fear is actually in some states it is very meaningless to have fear. Like it makes no sense even thinking the idea. Then there's some states where fear is a wake-up call. Fear is like an alarm clock. For me, my intuition is like a reporting officer. My inner realms, there is no longer even authority. It's like every person who demonstrates control. Let me tell you something strange. The idea is very, very strangely knit. That if we want control, or the person who is displaying control is in, or the idea of seeking something is like you are never it. You know? There's something strange about that too. That we are performers, but in front of what camera? I studied directing, only to realize that the language of the eyes transcends any definition of it. That moment where you're filming a skydiver, there is no words needed, for example. No, it's like some events, they don't need added dimensions. And that's also wisdom, to notice the emptiness in the moment and to also realize that some things in nature take time. Sometimes I felt it. I had a dream. In the dream, it was weird. In the dream, it was from a first view perspective, so I couldn't even see how I looked like. Just like normally, I couldn't even notice my hands, but I could see this one moment where I was in this strange classroom, and there was a student, just some student, and I was shouting at the student's greater self, in some sense. And there was an intensity without direction. I experienced that in a dream state. And I realized that the point is not one person. That's a tragic moment. I think every person there is no such thing as an agenda in a changing world. I will tell you, even if the mind entertains cosmic conspiracy. I remember laughing one day so hard that it was as if a friend of mine was talking about conspiracy, and suddenly there was this notion like, hey bro, you think the government's doing something? The cosmos behind the scenes. It was like metaphysical conspiracy, you know? Or like any person you see that says this world is like a prison. Those people are entertaining universal conspiracy. But let me tell you, the point of nature is that whatever you input in the system, it becomes the output. I'm not joking. That whole point of going into non-duality and being in this sort of selfless, going with the wind kind of existence, I will tell you the point of that is to give you discretion. That means non-duality has never had an opinion on how duality should be. Duality experienced suffering and notice non-duality. For me, it's like the person thinking of what's the difference between chaos and order. There's been some people who've seen chaos and order, like Rumi, as two wings of a bird. What does that mean? That means the same way our mind, imagine your mind is a bird and you need chaos and order to exist as a character in a changing world, as a static character in a dynamic world. That's the whole point. It's just interpretation. And when you realize knowledge is how the human being is trying to step out of the holes of ethnocentrism, that's the whole thing. Because we have to advance the language or we fall behind the world. You know, it's like the person, um, uh, it's like the person's birthday party, but the person doesn't attend their own birthday party. The person, imagine, gets enlightened realization and is like, yo man, I'm eternal, what birthday? Because life is taken seriously, people feel truth has to have a shape. But when you really find nature's pace, there's a sentence that I don't know who said it, but the sentence was, nature is never late. And I was like, oh, that makes me feel good about every class I've been late to. You know, I thought about competition without destructive consequence. I thought of so many systems require competition to update. They require the flux of chaos and order to evolve. But where does the attention go? For me, even saying these words, everything that is this moment, it's like one branch I'm sitting on for a while. Like a blue jay that has flied on a branch and is looking at the sun. That's how this realm feels to me. The objective realm is just the branch my eyes have opened on. But conscious living and moving towards the conscious world is the ego vision of, imagine 8 billion. Here's the thing. I think of jetpacks without fire, though, with some sort of sound technology, maybe sound-based jetpacks. Imagine jetpacks. We found sound technology as the force, and that technology got so advanced that every jetpack, instead of flames, it was like a symphony opera or something. There was some sort of music that came out of the jetpack. And I thought, what if everybody had jetpack, or if we had a civilization? Imagine right now, imagine we had evolved and we had wings. Just imagine we had eagle wings. Imagine like we were some sort of, like we had the wings of an eagle, but everything else was normal, like how we've evolved, right? But evolutionary wise, that means even you can say that the wings would have skin on them, human skin on them, or something. I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, imagine. So it would be a type of world where the same thing, if you had jetpacks or wings, doesn't make a difference. The human being would live throughout the day and fly into the sky, watch the civilization for their lunch break, eat their lunch in the sky with their jetpacks, and look at civilization, contemplate things, and fly down. That's the thing. We are like birds. We're like 8 billion birds on a branch, which we have all never flied up from. If you fly up from this branch, you will get so many different perspectives on the singularity, on the individualism. The individual is evolving. And what does that mean? That means as one component to the moment is being held the same, also one component to the moment is leaving, and a component is entering. It's the vision of the two birds in Vedanta. There's like two branches. And on the lower branch, there is a bird that has never stopped working. This bird, from the moment it has manifested, has been movement, just movement. Intense movement, never stopping, just living with life's programs, as if being possessed by the world. See, there's times where the world can possess man as much as man can possess the world. When I call this a cup, I have possessed it. That means if others are calling it another term, in my experience, this cup means this word. You know? So the linguistic simulation is like a cocoon that is taking massive individuals and they're awakening as conscious collective worlds. So our body is becoming more a rhythmic collective movement. Now, as one bird is endlessly moving on the upper branch, there is a bird that has never moved. This bird has never moved from the beginning. It's just been watching. This bird has just been watching the movement. That's your what really is your awareness. The difference between awareness and consciousness is that consciousness requires a something to be. The attention matter comes first. But in awareness, there is no matter per se. It's unconditional attention. And consciousness is conditional attention. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel the dictionary is just a liftoff platform. I feel that we no longer, just like Spider-Man, Uncle Ben was like, yo, with great power comes great responsibility, and Uncle Ben Maha Samadhi'd out of this dimension. We are in a world of design, and then stories flood our minds. It's one thing thinking about what a person like you deserve, the man in the mirror deserves in this life. Then it's another thing to wonder about what the world behind the man in the mirror deserves. There was a time I was thinking, imagine there was a mirror as big as the universe, and when the person looked in that mirror, it was also the universe looking at itself in the mirror. That is the incredible, fantastic vision that we are energetically intelligent, that intelligence is just how energy is moving in the world. There's no measurement for it. How is it being measured? We're different DNA. It's as if, how do you measure all instruments based on having the same sound? That's what the IQ test was. That's why I'm saying the person who made the IQ test has a low IQ. Because it's as if he was trying to judge all instruments based on the same sound. But every instrument is different. The symphony is being played, the symphony of the great happening that is this life. Whether you choose to see it as a shape and whether you choose to walk shapelessly, the moment has never had a problem, for it has always been its own answer. that all events in life, which in whatever way we walk in the linguistic simulation, with whatever way our character and our nature, or I would say the mind roars, because there's something that really, it was the deepest, one of, still to this day, one of the most complex moral problems, where I'm like, if someone does something evil but they're being honest, is that right or wrong? It was something that it was such a complex question. And then I realized, unless we add a collective factor, we cannot judge the individual. So what it means is, if you feel society is a rough place, the easiest thing is to get out of the ring. But if you can stand your ground and you notice where you have been dispatched as attention in this realm, the task is, if we can see, if we can do something better, we do that. If we can't, then what can we do? That's the cool thing about the emptiness, of this realm. That you can't do anything about emptiness. You can't even contemplate it. Did you know that? I mean, as through language, it can be said, but to contemplate emptiness, you must be empty. And how can an empty phenomenon do anything? How can absence be meaning, in other words? The caterpillar becomes a butterfly in a very short time span, but for us it takes billions of years. The caterpillar, if it could speak, it'd be like, yo, you guys, are so behind. Imagine we reach a point. I think if in the future they connect everybody's head to computers, let's say to one computer or one sort of server, let's say. Let's say in the future there's going to be something called the lifesaver server, and people go in this life server and they can live any kind of life. Imagine. And so you live whatever kind of life and you step out. This is why I'm saying it's hilarious. Science is denying the the transcendental, which is the early archaic word, archaic view of the multidimensional. There is denial. The materialistically oriented perspectives, they have to deny, because certainty is shape based. This is why life becomes scary if you think you're just stuff. Because stuff can break any moment. In the mystical sense, they were like the air can leave. The attention can fly off from this branch if it wants to. But the value of it is, why are we here? I have had so many, throughout the years, so many ideological, I feel like literally it's like my intuition was like a real estate agent, and it was showing me different ideological structures throughout these years, especially through these talks. Until the moment has come where the person doesn't want to buy a house because they've realized they're alive once, they want to build a house. That was the thing. That's where you suddenly realize, the moment, it's like the weak follow. The weak follow. And if you treat this world as like an island where you have to be a survivor in, and people don't realize this. People think it's hard work to change. But you are always changing. As Heraclitus says, no man steps in the same river twice, and it is not the same man, it is not the same river. That means I could today look at life and see a problem, and then tomorrow wake up and feel like a totally different me, and not even notice that problem. It's just that discretion is the sign of awareness. Discretion is the suggestion of how many bars the phone signal has. You know, your antenna, your intelligence, let's call it your antenna gens. Antenna. Yeah, it's just this world is our eyes are a camera. We don't know who's looking through. We notice what we see though through the camera, and phenomena can move, and also the cameraman can move. We're like a cameraman where the eyes can't move away from the lens. So a cameraman who has forgotten they're a cameraman, that's pretty much like Mrs. But the cameraman is not based on form, it's the attributeless, the watching witness, which is really where grace comes from. Because there is a sort of grace where it's defined based on value, there's a type of goodness where the person's been literally conditioned to be good. They don't know what good and bad is. You know, there's some people who have never looked at the bad, but they think they're very, very good people. You know? So there's something very important that we don't forget. The significance of life is to be real in it. To be real in it is more like having the antenna signal update in every single movement of your being. With every inhale, exhale, I feel my antenna signal updating. What I mean by this antenna signal is that witnessing watcher through your eyes is actually the processor, and it is the prime mover. Now, the movement has been defined as a change of the of form. Now we need to kind of acknowledge invisible movements if we care to have an advancement of communication. Even whatever perspective, I'm not even speaking from a religious context, I'm speaking from a sci-fi context. In the sense that in the future, if we feel there's going to be extraterrestrial contact, we have to consider that this extraterrestrial may be telepathic. It may not have a mouth. Imagine an extraterrestrial lands, but it doesn't have a face. It's like a morph suit. We're like, no way, no way. You know, and the creature is just energy based, and it's like people go around it, they suddenly see like a film in their inner realms of how the extraterrestrial speaks, for example. So that means we have to consider the invisible movement of intelligence. We have to consider, just because a whale hasn't jumped out of the water, it doesn't mean there isn't creatures in the deep. There isn't greater dimensions in the deep. There is. I'm telling you, treat this world as if there is too much to be able to referentially index it and conclude meaning. This is why the person's like, what do I do with an endless world? And some people are like, yeah, it's like, put it in a story. It's easier to maintain. And we put it in a story, which becomes our beliefs, and then we become a certain character only in our inner realms. That means you put on virtual reality goggles when you have idealism. It doesn't mean you are a bad person or a good person. It just means you've put those virtual reality goggles on. That means your inner realm has become more significant than the outer realm, so you stop caring for the unknown potential of your world. And you bulldozer it through a certain specific knowledge. That means I was like, holy shit. If every human being had the same belief system, check this out, guys. Do you want this? Like, this should be something every human being should ask. Do we want the same belief system? Because it would mean a cloning of minds. It would be the death of innovation if we all believe the same thing. It would be the death of different departments. It would be like a brain where only one part of it just only works, and the rest, because it doesn't work, it has access to nothing. That's the shame about power. It realizes it can't rewind time. That means fun is fun. Of course, have fun in this life. Nobody's saying don't have fun. But the issue is, the fun can be a usage of the existential energy experientially in a way where you might have wanted it to go another way. So for me, it's this notion where what is the out how would I say, what is the resolve? to this dilemma of being an object that is treating itself like a subject, but is noticing the object and subject simultaneously moving as a watcher. What do we do with this? What we do is we give a voice for the first time to our inner realms, which is the evolution of language. So as we shake the linguistic simulation, or we can even treat it supernaturally, super space naturally, we should not fear our potential, because sometimes the view is, why is the idea there? It's easy, you can say, I mean, it's easier to contemplate why the objective self in an objective world is there. We look at background radiation, we consider the whole like temperature. It says, you know what it is? It's as if the cosmos was actually crafted in a furnace, but it was either crafted from nothing, or it was crafted with some sort of imprint pattern, as if before our universe there was another universe. So technically universes are incarnating, and we think we don't notice that there was other lives for the universe. You see, the mind can infuse any design. I think ultimately it comes to resolve through the presence of just design. That means, I remember hearing this quote from Epictetus. He says, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from the judgments we have about them. We suffer because of how we tell the story to ourselves, not the event. We suffer because we are identifying as language in the linguistic simulation. What happens when the linguistic simulation breaks, or the skies of the linguistic simulation crack? The butterfly's reality emerges. The butterfly's world happens. So you got caterpillar problems, just up until you become a butterfly, and then you got butterfly problems. That's the cool thing about life. That's why the past is not something to hold on to too much. The past is like a toolbox. You need the tool, go there, use it, and come back. You know. On a sphere in a vacuum, show me someone who speaks and is not a fool. The world is designed. We acknowledge an objective design. We have not paid as much of a sophisticated attention to the subjective design as the objective design. Even though we entertain our notion, the ego is pretty much you identifying with an image of yourself. If you do not see the advanced civilization, you are in a world, but you are in your world. If you see the advanced civilization, this idea I'm saying, if you see the significance of man becoming his own angel archetype, if you could see a civilization where the inner realms were like advanced Iron Man suits, invisible Iron Man suits, and we had capable individuals moving in the realm. You see, for me, this is the thing. Right now, it's as if my attitude is like, sorry, world, for intruding. Yet it's as if we are. How can I say it? It's like with muddy shoes, we are helping build the monastery. Inside the monastery, the person may have muddy shoes, but it's as if they are also there to just contribute, because some moments you never belong to, and some moments you have always belonged. It's the same with the eyes and mind. Some people in this world suddenly see you. They see you. And some people, you are yet another character in their film of films. For me, it's like seeing lions that haven't roared yet and wondering what the purpose of life is. That is the point of advanced communication. Because if we could communicate in advanced ways, that's the end of war. I mean, think about it. We all are like, world peace, oh my God, it's impossible. But how is the world in pieces first? If you are suffering, you have accepted that suffering. If you're not suffering, you have accepted that not suffering. You have accepted freedom, because both options are here. You can be very weak, yet notice the world to be strong. You can see your world be weak, and yet notice yourself to be strong. And so the eagle flies through many elevations, knowing that the purpose of flight is not just only destination, it is conduct. That we're not here to just say nice things, but to also play the part, the role of creaturehood. Let us honor our design, not escape from it. And building an advanced civilization is the greatest act. I mean, think about it. Let's say, so there was this idea that so many religious movements have gotten rid of, used trees to build temples, and then prayed for like rain in the temple. Do you know? It's one of those situations where if you deserve the better, you have already walked there. If the person cares for efficiency, their attention will go on efficiency. That means there's been moments, something it took me a while to learn, but I see it so like as a very efficient way to communicate, is that when someone, for example, someone you care about says something very um, uh, unnecessarily, let's say. Okay, I'll give you an example. I have a twin brother, and there's moments where I've been in dialogue and discussion, and there's been situations where, for example, there has been a volcanic eruption from my twin brother's side, and in those situations, it took me a while to, in some sense, contemplate that you gotta let the fires of the inner realms of individuals just die out on their own. That means there should be this thing where when there's an angry person, everybody should be still and silent. Everybody should be like those freeze frame kind of like videos of people, dance freeze or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you call it. So in that moment, everybody should watch the angry person in silence until the angry person is like, oh my God, do I want to continue with this performance? You know? I find it in this life, regardless of the archetype of good or evil, there's the archetype of human being. That means there is intelligence being a form. And people have been painting this canvas with endless forms, language. And there isn't much we can do. It's just like how the tree gives fruit, human beings, they move through ideological systems in their inner lives. You see, for me, it would make sense if everybody on the planet stopped trying to do in some sense, the same thing. In every moment, they cared about the collective efficient emergence and novelty. Novelty is the most powerful and liberating idea. The idea that the new awaits. The founder of Aikido, Morihei Ueshiba, he says, create each day anew. Who said each day has to be the same? Isn't that freedom? A freedom that is not based on anything? It's not freedom from or freedom for. It's neither freedom by or freedom with. It's free before it could be dominated by a concept or a context. We are experiential beings. And there's something about nature that the more natural you are, the more your moment is honest. You know what it is? It's like, think of it this way. We right now, from a materialistic perspective, consider that through this long process of evolution and cooling, cosmic cooling, we have put on a mask and are now waking up from forgetting that we put it on. That's what evolution is. You realize something better is happening and you be that. Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, wake up, know yourself, be yourself. As if like that's how easy life is. You wake up into the conscious moment, you wake up, you notice you're suddenly in the room again, in the room of manifestation. You wake up and you know yourself, which means you notice the event of life happening. That's the waking up part. Then, as you watch life, its movement is information on its own. And once you know and have observed and become acquainted with your presence in the moment, the last thing left after you know the ultimate is to be it. The point of life is in every point. We need to become fascinated again and not restricted by how unknown the world is. That means some people look at the unknown and they're like, oh my God, I don't see anything. Why? Why should I care? You know, and then there's some people look at the unknown and they're like, why is there a gap? Why is there a missing piece to this puzzle of the realm? And a civilization of advanced communicators and pilots of consciousness. Human beings who are not just identifying, they have the capacity to be an individual, but they have understood the languages of the collective mind. This collective mind is not a digital, it's not an, to be honest, it's an idea that can never be an idea. It's an event. And that's the thing. That means for me, there's a beauty, of course, that is story based. You look at, for example, if you have a certain story in your mind, my in this life my view on beauty has evolved. I've had savage, very animalistic levels of observing beauty, and I've had certain ways of observing beauty, that beauty is how something is, not per se what something is. It is the elegance of the watcher. That's where the style of life comes from. That's when you suddenly notice that there were blind spots, because it's so easy to declare perfection. You know, you can say somebody who's never, like, they showed this video. There were these cocoa farmers who had no idea, they were living these poor lives. They had no idea what the cocoa, in like where the cocoa was going and what was being happening. It was these like very primitive villager farmers, you know, not primitive, I would say, but I would say, like, you know what I mean, like less conscious of the urban. And so what happens is, this guy goes and takes a chocolate bar or something, you know, and he's like, hey, have you guys ever wondered, to those farmers, cocoa farmers, and it's like, have you ever wondered what happens to the cocoa you farm every day? And the farmers are like, no, we don't ask questions, we're good people. And what happens is, the person with the camera in that YouTube video, he gives the chocolate bar to the cocoa farmers, and they eat it, and their minds get blown, and for them it is a perfection, as if they have never, their brain has never processed that taste. So you could say, like, now, like, as a person, if I see a chocolate bar, I'm like, all right, man, it's like, there's better things to look at in life, you know. But for that cocoa farmer, it was like, yo, never before taste has ever, you know, been imprinted in my brain, you know. That means I wouldn't be surprised that a person's variety in their diet could actually contribute to various different parts of their brain being activated. Of course, every movement. I mean, it's like liquid in a jar. Like, that's how the brain arises. You know, it's contained, and that's the cool thing. It's like we are a biological projector that has no idea why the film is being played, as a character in the film who thinks with individual glory and yay, you know. So life is, the rather than us trying to fight over the truth of the known, we should just be okay more. We should have a new approach to the unknown. The moment we update ourselves experientially through the unknown, this doesn't mean chasing anything. This means just trusting that it's okay for the unknown to be unknown. It's okay for existence to just exist. That's a purpose. Existence is its own purpose. But experience, which is movement based, can have narrative purpose. So you can say, without consciousness, would we have any problems? So it's an opportunity to even be able to experience the problem in a cosmos where there hasn't been a creature as advanced as you. You know, for us, we're like a species who's like, oh my God, where are the aliens? There was a person named Fermi. This is Fermi's paradox. Where are all the aliens? This is like a very big philosophical question, you know? And I'm saying that, okay, so if there's no aliens and we're on an island and we are the most advanced species and human beings are killing human beings, we're killing the next best thing after aliens. The human being should be treated as a sacred relic of potential. Imagine Einstein walking in the street and a bunch of thugs beating him up. And it would end his career in physics before many of his discoveries. So you would see everything has unknown potential. That means you honor the unknown in someone, you will have no problem with how they know things. Because you realize, regardless of your analysis of the other, there's unknown dimensions. That means even if you understood someone perfectly, there's still unknown dimensions to the world. And every person's personality is not just them, it's also how they respond to the stimulus in the environment. So we're right now, 2020, transition point. We're still in the cocoon, but the cocoon has opened. The cocoon has opened, and it's coming the emergence of a totally new behavioral creature. In other words, we're wondering about the behavior of rhythmic movement of attention of a group of creatures, for example. You know, it's like looking at a beehive and being like, oh my God, how embarrassing. These bees are so small, yet their organization, their rhythm, it's as if the bees don't have doubt. They just go and do their work. You know, animals are to me like the greatest inspiration of hard work because they don't have doubt. They don't see hard work and easy work, they just movement. You know, there is processing, of course. The more complex the brain, the more complex the processor, of course, the more meaning to life. But it's just that there is a sort of hive mind at work, and that hive mind, for now, the way it was in ancient times approached was the notion of God. I'm not joking. It was God was like some person, I'll say it like this, God was a perspective where it was as if a human being, they looked at themselves and they're like, yo, who am I? I'm a person. Where did I come from? From people. And then they looked at the cosmos and they're like, where did the cosmos come from? And then they're like, the cosmos came from the cosmos, but before the cosmos, the thought people came. So you could say God is the personification of the whole universal expression in an unknown way. So it's like, here's the challenge. Because religious systems, they have to stay true to their design. So that means how could they come into agreement? They can only come into agreement as the collective unconscious. So that means any person, there's a way you can relate to others through what you know, which is either common or not, or what you both don't know is also what you have in common. So for me, it's like the best strategy is to stop having human beings hurt human beings. That's inferior animal games. The superior animal games is attention, every attention efficiently going to trying to with an intense force advancing the civilization. But this advancement really is very strange, where it's that whole trying to see how 8 billion individuals with free wills and egos have to now, in a hive mind way, endure through the space-time continuum. If we care about the self, our destiny is to see the outcome of the self. If we care about the world, Our outcome is, our destiny poetically is to see the outcome of the world. If we care for the whole moment in a way where we can't be anything other than the whole moment, there is the glitch in the system, or you can say the ultimate noticing of the invisible truth that was in the visible. So for me, it's like truth. You can say either an object or subject of attention. For a while, it was an object, then it became a subject. As if we want to speak about truth, it will always have to be limited to an object or subject relationship. But when we want to talk about beyond objects and subjects, well, how can you use objects and subjects? You know, and that's why multidimensionality comes in. So the way we're trying to attempt to advance, as Ludwig Wittgenstein says, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. It's like in our efforts as a species to advance our language, we are in the same time wondering we have to find a sort of harmony of this new language with the hive mind. So it's as if we're like, all right, how do we have these individual 8 billion individual creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere play the greatest game they can? So we have to be pilots. That's the thing. Rather than being birds defined by the branch we're on, we should define ourselves based on who we are. We should be natural. We should honor the laws of nature first. Nature's law, which was before language, which was a law of meaning and sensitivity to experience. I saw in this baseball game, this little kid, wanted to get this baseball, and this like 12-year-old kid, smarter, comes and grabs the ball, and the little kid cries, and the kid is celebrating. Then this kid notices this little kid crying, and he gives the baseball, he gives the trophy treasure to the little kid. It's like, let me find this video. It's like that video was the future. All right, guys, check out the link. So this is the link of the baseball thing I was saying. That this kid in the video, the child was sensitive to the event. That's the thing. We're human beings before we are the words we throw at each other. Okay, guys. We are a species in linguistic denial of our true nature. We can look at the world in complex ways, simple ways, but there are dimensions of also where you're going in this simple and complex landscape and what speed. Your speed in life is where the style in the world comes from. It's how you move towards what you are seeing. You know, there were revolutions back in the day that were challenging the political system or the governing system, and they were physically challenging it violently. But now it seems that we have to, in some sense, through a design approach, we have to tame the dragon through design and discourse. You know, it's like, how would you feel if you saw, let's say, a great athlete or someone who had great potential not implemented? Now imagine you saw 8 billion of those people. That's the value of the world. Pretty much the caterpillar is an individual object identifying as a subject. Once it enters the cocoon, as the cells of the butterfly emerge, that's kind of like a subject realizing it's an object. So before it was an object realizing it's a subject, when it enters the caterpillar entering the cocoon, then it becomes a subject trying to become an object, a sort of a single cell and story of the butterfly's organism beginning. Whether we're in the mind of God or in the mind of man, whether we're in the mind of the terrestrial or the extraterrestrial, whether we're in the mind of the known or the unknown, the invisible or the visible, the simple or the complex, or whatever sort of dualistic axis is either extracted into place or witnessed into place. The mind is understood like the ears. They are not something at its core, like the ears are just a receptive opportunity. It's just being. Being is like receiving the antenna signal. Doing is like expressing the antenna signal, giving off a signal. And this mindfulness to your own thing, I think every person should, like a designer, get a journal and wonder about how their inner realms are arising to them. Not per se to have play the game of disbelief or belief, which is super archaic. If an advanced civilization deserves to fly, then it will. And it seems like it's going that way. So, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope this episode has been helpful. Much blessings.